Hello everybody and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick and today we're going to be checking out the Deep True Horror Edition by developer Alex Collins. I'm not sure exactly what about it makes the true horror come to life, but it is a pretty creepy game, I'll be perfectly honest. A rather dark game as well. It's a first-person atmospheric horror exploration game with a little bit of puzzles, but there's sort of like ambient environmental puzzles more than proper puzzles, and it has a pretty nice sense of creepiness about it, in that the further down we get into this crypt or dungeon or whatever we seem to find ourselves in, the scarier things seem to be for our protagonist, and that's probably the right attitude, I suppose, you could have if you want to be on the side to creep people out, and I guess you kind of need to if you're going to put True Horror Edition in your title. So why don't we start out a new game? I did play a little bit of this. I've got probably about 20 minutes worth, and I was reasonably pleasantly surprised. There are a few things that, of course, I'm going to critique, but for the most part, I think this is a pretty decent thing to grab if you're in the mood for something a little bit creepy, and you don't mind maybe some slightly repetitive texture work. So yeah, the usual WASD for movement, mouse look, of course, shift for run, and spacebar to jump, and E, I think, does, or left click rather, yeah, left click does the interaction with objects. Fairly standard first-person game controls. I think most people are going to be able to grasp those without a little vignette for each one as we do the introductions. You wake up in a strange place, no memory of how you got there. There must be a way out. I'm fairly certain, since this is a video game, there will be. Okay, so let's get a little bit of a grasp of our surroundings here. We seem to be next to a big old bed, some kind of the big square pillow, and we have a beating heart in the bottom left corner. As it turns out, we seem to be following the sort of Call of Duty ethos as it pertains to health regeneration. So if you get too hurt for too long, you can't sustain that kind of damage, you will find yourself dead. What I did just then was I left-clicked on that box that actually broke it. At first I thought they were just weird, strangely placed buttons, and then they were depressing into the ground as I was touching them, but that's not the case. They're just breaking, and every now and then you'll run into one that has a key or something in it, and that also looks like a button, but it's actually just a tile that I guess fell off one of these walls or something like that. So you'll notice the graphical aesthetic seems to me to be a little bit reminiscent of something like Eldritch or I'm Scared, or I don't know, there's a handful of other horror games I think that follow a similar aesthetic to them, and I don't dislike it. It's definitely not supposed to be supernaturalistic or anything like that, and I think that's fine. I generally say, as it pertains to development of games, work with what you're good at, and if you have to make the art assets look a certain way, go for a style, and I think that's what this accomplishes for the most part. So I'm going to kind of creep my way through these walls here, and I found a key. At first I was wondering, maybe is this like a procedurally generated game, because the placement of that key seemed a little bit strange to me, but it turns out not to be. This is a scripted or, pre-designed area, which is totally cool. In fact, I think that sort of makes me wonder a little bit about like the potential of using something like Minecraft to create compelling level design. There's probably a lot of, user-created preordained maps that people have put together that actually will be just fine to play, and this sort of makes you wonder, like, what are the implications about using something like that as a tool to, like, create prototypes of things, and, maybe it's actually more viable than I would have given it credit for, because for the most part, I actually kind of enjoy this game, despite it being, very dark most of the time, which doesn't really highlight much in the way of graphics, but that's very much thematically intentional, and you definitely can't fault them for that. I do wish there was a little bit of variability, though, between being dark all the time and maybe a few moments of slight respite. And I also do enjoy moments like this where you go, well, can I fall down there? Is that going to kill me? Or can I, like, get over to this edge, and then if I do get over to this edge, can I jump across the other side? It looks like a place that you're not meant to be, and I always enjoy finding things like that in level design. It seems to give you the impression that this wasn't just designed for you, and maybe you can go off the rails and sort of, get your own narrative moving. Separate keys needed for each door, so it does tell you little things between some of the zones, I guess we could call them, and there are actually chapters to this as this story begins to get told. Right now, this is just sort of an exploration moment, and there's a lot of looking around for things, just, clicking doors, opening things, and for the most part, that doesn't change terribly, but there is enough that gets innovated upon every now and then that actually sort of makes you question, is this actually starting to become redundant? And it generally doesn't, actually. You would think from the first few levels that we're just going to spend all of our time just looking at four walls surrounding us, and that's mostly all that we're going to get. But no, there's actually some other stuff too. And it's even some kind of cool traps like tiles that fall out of the floors, which is sort of a dynamic thing that I wasn't necessarily expecting to see. Sometimes when you see kind of lo-fi graphics like this, you expect maybe the environments are going to be fairly static as well. And, you know, not that they're not somewhat static, but there are at least some things that make you question those types of decisions, and this is what I was talking about right here. So the tiles start to crack and fall away. You can actually see them do that, which is kind of neat. So there's our key. And you don't have to worry so much about getting trapped over on the wrong side here, because, again, we can jump. Although I don't think our jump distance is particularly fantastic, considering ceiling's rather low here. Okay, so I already forgot where that door was, so I'm just going to kind of search around for that for a moment. And in case you wonder why I keep saying that this game is extremely dark, most likely I'm going to lighten up the gamma on this a little bit in post, because YouTube tends to make videos very dark, just via its own compression methods. And I don't necessarily want to contribute to making that even worse, so I may go a little bit further in the other direction, hoping that we can somehow find a middle ground. I would say best bet, experience this for yourself if you don't mind. Go ahead and grab it. It's totally free. And then you can set the brightness levels to a value that seems to make sense for you. All right, so we're going to be going down a little passage here. The audio also fairly compelling. I mean, we do have some sort of ambient air sounds playing, and then of course the ever-present heartbeat. Certainly a thing that's been hit upon a few times when it comes to traditional horror tropes. I think anytime something scary happens, if you just sort of deaden the sound and then just have a heart beating, well, you're just going to be reminded of your own heart. And, you know, it's a memento mori. It's a reminding you of your own mortality in a way. Oh, I can see through the wall here. That's kind of interesting. Oh, I guess that's just sort of a shader effect or something. So the subtitle there was "Not Alone." Starts to make you wonder what's about to come your way. Oh, we can actually walk up these edges. I didn't even realize that before. Some grating underneath. And you know, I'm starting to get a little bit of like almost a Silent Hill vibe from things like those gratings, because you're really not sure how macabre this is going to get, right? There's always this question if you play any kind of horror game, is this going to be the kind of game where there's like a spoopy skeleton that comes out of a wall, or is this the type of game where like tendrils of flesh and demons are going to eat your bones, and you'll be bathed in blood, and, you know, incredibly masochistic, scary, horrible things happen. So there's a pretty big difference in the spectrum of you are basically in hell versus Halloween stuff, you know, and, you know, those are spiders, so I would say those fall pretty far on the spooky Halloween side of things, and that's okay, because visually and thematically, I think that kind of fits what we're looking at here. Granted, though, I think that maybe something a little bit Silent Hill-ish wouldn't necessarily be a problem here. I think it actually might give a little bit more credence and credibility to this theme being super serious, because it is. It does not have any, you know, humor to it. It does not have any lightness to it. It is very, you are about to die in a crypt alone and everything's terrible kind of feeling. Even Isaac feels remotely self-aware in the way that it's positioned, but this game feels like it's like totally all in on the horror idea, with the one exception of maybe the style. So those spiders might run a little bit contrary to it, but, you know, you'll see. There's something else coming up. So there's some boxes, and where there's boxes with white covers over them, apparently that's where spiders live. And to be honest, the spiders are not a huge danger to us unless we happen to be trapped in a space with them. And for the most part, we're probably not going to let that happen. Are they actually, maybe they're just spider egg sacs. That probably makes a lot more sense. Just keep on running down the hallways. I guess the ones that have a solid wood panel on them, you can open. The ones that are like broken up into two chunks, you can't. I don't know why that is, but maybe they're like the front and back of doors or something. And this is actually a lever. At first, I didn't quite recognize that that was a lever, but that is indeed what it is. It's kind of minimalistic, so it's easy to pass up, I suppose. Especially when everything's sort of drab green and olive colors. It's easy to just look past something that's sort of brown and just sort of looks like a twig or something like that. So that opened up one of those jail cells. We can walk through there. Another door, and I have a feeling there will be more spiders in our very near future. Ah, this is where things start to get a little bit spookier. This is where I was thinking, like, if they were going to do something super creepy and Silent Hill, like, it would have made a lot of sense to do it right about here. But as it turns out, What this actually is just basically a test of your ability to walk over a straight line. If you fall down through most of these, you're not going to die. There's just going to be spiders. Well, okay, you very well may die, but you probably shouldn't if you can run away. Although there are a couple spots where you can fall in that you actually can't run and jump out of, which those are kind of lame. But anyway, basically the test is just walk over all of that stuff. Spiders are now trapped on the other side of this wall, I believe, and we can just proceed forward. Yeah, I just wanted to give you a visual there. Nothing much going on. Let's proceed through the door, and what do we find? More tiled walls. I do wish there was like a couple of other textures they use for the wall textures. I mean, I'll live and everything, and it definitely gives you the feeling that like things are very, very dark and spooky and bad down here. I've trodden on a pressure plate. That's bad news for me because I don't have a way of killing these spiders. I don't think anyway. Guess I'll just have to run past them and try and kite them behind me. Provided my heart holds out. Oh god, all the pressure plates. We've trodden on all of them. Yeah, alright. It's cool. We had a door. Oh god, run! Keep running. This is pacing, guys, in case you were wondering. I think the spiders even come in multiple sizes, which is a lovely touch. Okay, I got kind of turned around there. Let's try that one more time. I think there's a side passage that I just am not seeing, but the fact that the screen keeps flashing red is kind of... Oh, I just go behind me, don't I? I guess the door that I was trying to go in was the door that I actually came in for some reason. That it just struck me as not obvious. Anyway, you don't think generally, like, immediately run directly behind you when you're being chased at the beginning of a level, so, you know, it is what it is. My heart seems to have turned rather black. I don't know if that's just because it took a bunch of damage. Yeah, it seems to be restored now. The only way is down. So I guess there might also be some kind of a cumulative effect from taking damage that maybe after a while you can't regenerate to full anymore. And now it's nice that it tells you the only way is down because actually I wouldn't have necessarily guessed because there were a few spots where you've noticed like you've been able to see that you could go down, but if you did, it would kill you. The fall actually was disproportionately large for the amount of space that you could perceive that was below you. Anyway, let's fall. And, oh, yeah, it's a good long fall, and it's going to need a minute to get us back up to speed again. Alright, Chapter 3, The Thing in the Crypt. Just when you think you're starting to understand how things work, we've got foggy floors to break up the tiles, which is actually quite welcomed. I wish there was more stuff like that. So we've got some gravestones, also another new decoration. I appreciate that very much as well. A couple of boxes around. And what's over here? We've got a door. We've got... Oh my god, it's a demon from hell. Yeah, I didn't mean to overhype that or anything. I actually knew that was coming, but I wasn't sure exactly where it was going to be. But that certainly will catch you off guard, so pardon for the jump scare, but, you know, wouldn't be very fun if I took it away from you, would it? So the trick with this particular monster, apparition, or whatever we want to call it, is just, you know, the usual thing. Don't look at it. I've learned so many things from playing games like Slender. Apparently, no matter how evil a demon is, as long as it doesn't get into your field of vision, although I think what just happened there was sort of running in contradiction to what I'm about to say, generally you'll survive. You know, I guess most demons fall into, like, the Gorgon school, where they will basically petrify you to death if you happen to see them. It's not particularly concerned with chasing you, from what I can tell, so as long as you just kind of, like, look at the ground and navigate around it, things are probably going to be okay. But I really appreciate the presence of some kind of a horrible demon like that to run into, because, you know, I was starting to think maybe spiders were all that was going to happen here, and that's no fun. Nobody wants to just run into spiders all the time. It makes you wonder, too, where is this going to go when we get even further down? Okay, I'm not really sure I understand the geometry here. There's, like, a lot of strange half chunks of things that I can't quite walk behind. Is there... No, there's not a way through there. And I don't know what this is, just like a wood panel that's sort of half sticking out of the wall. I guess probably don't overanalyze it. There is also some creepy sound stuff going on in the background. It's probably a little bit too quiet for you to hear. Oh, this looks like the area by the Bastille in Dark Souls 2. Minus the jail cells, I suppose. Oh, there's probably a key in one of these boxes in there. There it is. Yeah, I just heard some kind of demonic, ghoulish voices, maybe backmasked or something, hanging out in the mix pretty far back. I want to make sure we have that little bit of unsettled feeling, which, you know, I appreciate if we're doing true horror. There we go. And I think maybe this will be the last screen that we go through, because I think this is actually where I started to get a little bit confused. I ran into this position where it seemed like there were just tons and tons of jail cells that I needed to open, and I'm pretty sure this is it. And then you eventually drop down, and if you don't activate the levers in the right order, I think then you end up not able to proceed forward, and I'm not sure quite what I needed to do differently. So yeah, you generally, when you run into a lever in a video game, you pretty much presume probably meant to flip it, right? Because that's kind of like how games tend to work. They give you things, they expect you to activate them because, I don't know, for whatever reason, people who play games, they just seem to follow and do anything that's in their field of vision, just like interact at all times. We don't necessarily need to know what we're doing, we're just gonna do it. Okay, wait, so I gotta flip that one back open. What does this one do if I go back down? This is gonna probably lock me in, right? I actually don't entirely know, and for this reason, this is probably where we're gonna wrap things up. See, that closed that. How do I get that one open? Pretty sure that's where I need to be. Anyway, yeah, you should probably check this one out. I'd love to hear what your opinions are as we get further in. If there's any more particularly spooky stuff that goes on, I'd love to hear if there's anything that really elevates this to even further, or, you know, just let me know what you think about the concept of such a minimalistic horror game that has, you know, pretty simple texture work, pretty simple assets about it, but it still gets the job done, in my opinion. You know, and I have very few qualms about this, other than maybe just, like, I kind of wish I didn't have to hear the heartbeat the whole time, but, you know, I've kind of gone over that stuff already as I wander here in circles. So the download link is going to be right in the description for you if you want to go grab it. Again, totally free. I don't remember if this one was also available to play in browser, but it may have been. I know there's definitely a download link, though, so at the very least, go check that out. And while you're in that description, if you want to find out more about me and or the series, I've got plenty more for you to see. I've got a Twitter page, a Facebook page, a Twitch page where I stream on occasion, and of course, indie-impressions.com. The main point of the whole project, essentially, to aggregate all of these videos in one place so you can sort through them and browse them. Did I just solve the puzzle? No, I didn't, because that's actually the one I'm trying to get through. Whatevers. Anyway, I'm going to let you go for another day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider leaving a like on it. It helps me out quite a bit. And be sure to come back again tomorrow for a new indie game. New ones every single day in this series. So if you liked it, feel free to come on back another day. So I will see you then, and I hope you have a fantastic night. Talk to y'all later.